Through the years, there have been a number of theories about what happened to Kortne Stouffer. One private investigator based in Florida has suggested the Palmyra woman was the victim of a serial killer. Melanie Orleans reported in January 2014 that the investigator believed Kortne was one of 18 women who fit the profile of missing women or women killed between 2012 and 2014.
Long blonde hair, blue or brown eyes, and 18 to 26 years old. That's what private investigator Bill Warner says links these 18 women together.
I was getting concerned, and I started putting this information out because, to me, it appeared to be a profile of a serial abductor who was looking for a particular type of young girl.
Warner began looking into these cases in 2011 with missing women in Kentucky and Tennessee. He says the FBI is already investigating these as individual cases, but wants them to look at it as a whole.
Maybe somebody ought to take a step back here and look at these girls and look at the appearance of all these girls who look like sisters. It's like a family photo.
While Lebanon County District Attorney Dave Arnold says Warner's theory is interesting,
for the first time in more than 5.5 years, we finally tonight have a few new answers to a question that has loomed over Indiana and over the town of Delphi. Who killed Abby Williams and Libby Jones?
From the end of the bridge you got to go through. Now, I believe that the bodies were found about 50.
Born from a family's grief and determination. In April of 2020, Army soldier Vanessa Guillen went missing while stationed at one of the largest military installations.
You hear that little music in the background that goes, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious."
Right.
Knew about it or was there. He's as guilty as the person who committed it.
Chilling details in the arrest of a suspected serial killer caught before he could strike again.
They dropped the ball, man. Like they said, he went AWOL, and that he was a deserter, and nobody went to look for him.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder.
Like I said, we're going back. We were asked last time to kind of talk about the food, the grub truck video, and kind of give our perspective of it. The press release from the police department, it indicated that they're still trying to put pieces together from that night. Does that worry you at any point or at any bit that they're still trying to put those pieces together?
It's been over 5 weeks since little Kaylee Anthony vanished. Her mother, Casey, has been arrested for lying to police. She's being held without bail.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to The Drunken Turkey Show, your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
I think I tricked everybody thinking we didn't have an intro. How's it going? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host, Daniel J. Alongside with me, as always, is Big Blue on a Wednesday night. How you doing, Blue?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
I got something to show you real quick. See?
Oh man, I hope your pants stay on.
They might.
They might. You got to bend down there, Blue.
There you go.
There it is, the Drunk Turkey Show.
Drunk Turkey Show
shirt.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, if you guys are interested in copying one of those, all you got to do is check out the store here on YouTube or go to Bonfire. Check it out. It's right here. Bonfire. Just look up the Drunk Turkey Show. You have the DTS shirts. Also for women, you have the tank tops. You have the logo in different colors. Blue just sported the blue one. There's black, there's yellow, there's red, and there's green. There's hoodies, unisex shirts, women's shirts, men's shirts, the whole 9 yards. So go check it out. And if you're interested, let us know. Send us some pictures of it.
There's big boy sizes like mine. So fortunately, it's the biggest one they have on that website.
That's good, my man. That's good. So today we got a different type of show. Last time, well, maybe not the last time we met, but a couple times ago, we were looking at cases that we thought that potentially could link back to Coburger, right? Now, long story short, there's been some rumors and speculation that ID cards were found going back to one of the victims at Idaho, and that there was other ID cards there. And then a rumor comes out that perhaps that he's being looked at 2 other cases in Pennsylvania, right? So we went through the Pennsylvania cases to see if there's any of those that kind of fit the MO of what Bryan Coburger and his MO and what he did in that one incident that we know of, right? Now, is it possible? We didn't find anything that was exactly the same. We didn't find anything that was 4 people by a knife, 2 people left, nothing exactly the same, but we did find quite a bit. And Kortne Stouffer was one of them. And we put out a video about it. And one of her friends actually reached out to us, hadn't even seen the video that we put out. It was actually the next day. She reached out and said, hey, would you guys look at this case? Since Bryan Kohberger was arrested, I can't help but feel that he was possibly involved. This was a friend of hers. And so we did. And sure enough, there's some suspicious stuff there. And so we're going to break that all down for you guys. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button and ring that notification bell before we get going. But you ready to start this? Let's
ready.
do it. All right, let's bring in our guest. Her name is Holly, coming in from Pennsylvania. How you doing, Holly?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for watching the show and participating and sending us the information on this case and a lot of other information that helped us really break it down. I really, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you were a friend of Kortne's, is that correct?
We weren't super close, but we were close within the party scene. At that time, I was pretty young. My brother has a bar that's local in the area. She would come into his bar. We would bump shoulders a lot at the gas station, which is local to the Hershey area. Just a very bubbly, happy person. She had a lot of great energy, somebody that you want to be around if you're out having a good time.
For sure. She seems like a really sweet girl. Tell by her style and what everybody was, that's talked about her, says she was free spirited, kind of a hippie.
Oh yeah.
Where did y'all meet? Did y'all meet at that bar?
We did at the gas station.
Okay, at the gas station. Okay, and how long did you know her or know of her prior to her disappearance?
I would say close to maybe 2 years. She was in, a close group of friends of mine before we were, well, at least before she was 21. At the time I was 21. She definitely had that outgoing personality. A lot of people were close to her in my age group that were local to our area. A lot of close connections. Just a very likable person.
Right. And so she was from, forgive me for pronouncing this wrong, Palmyra. There you go. I got dyslexia, and sometimes when I read things, it doesn't come out right. So I apologize for that. Palmyra. How far is Palmyra from the gas station?
Oh my goodness. I'd say maybe 10 minutes.
And what's the population like in the area?
Well, Hershey is very close to Palmyra and Harrisburg. I would say within Hershey alone, you're looking at probably close to 30,000 people, if not more. It's a very large town.
But it's still a town. Probably, if you're looking at population, it's very similar to Moscow.
Very similar.
It's a big tourist destination, right? Because they have the Hershey Museum.
Very, very big tourist area. We have a lot of people who travel in, not just nationally, but internationally as well.
Got you. And so, what about colleges? What type of colleges or universities are in the area?
A ton. So you're looking at Penn State Harrisburg. That's in Middletown. Middletown is neighbored to Homelstown, which is right beside Hershey. We're looking at maybe a 20-mile radius. You have Elizabethtown College, which is probably another 5 miles in the direction of Hershey. Let me think. So Hershey, you have Elizabethtown, Penn State Harrisburg. You can go down further to Gettysburg. You can go up north towards Bloomsburg. But in our local area, you're looking at 2 main colleges, and that's Penn State Harrisburg and Elizabethtown.
Got you. And now I know this is just kind of skipping a little bit because I see somebody ask. She ended up at a place called the Hardware Bar. What city is that located in?
That's in That's in Harrisburg. Yep.
Okay, and so relative to Harrisburg, how far is the Pocono Mountain area?
You're looking at maybe an hour and a half drive.
Okay, so it's not too far, but it's not close like the Pullman Moscow area. Let's go back. I saw somebody ask that question. I just wanted to ask that before.
No, it's okay.
So, when was the last time that you saw her? Do you remember?
I would say maybe 2 months prior to that. She had come into my brother's bar. We were just kind of catching up. We both, when you're in that party scene, it's not like you're sitting there having like social hour. There's loud music, just having a good time. I knew that she was doing hair at the time. Outside of that, we didn't really, talk about anything personal, but she was having a good time as usual.
Did you know her boyfriend, Brad?
I did not know him. No.
Yeah, she never brought him to the bar or anything?
He could have been in the picture, but she always had a group of friends with her, so I wouldn't have known who Brad was. Again, she was a very social person.
Got you. Yeah, I in doing my research, I see that she's had quite a bit of like house parties and things like that. Did you ever attend one of them or stop by?
No, she had come to a couple house parties that I was at, but I had never been to her place. Never.
Got you. Yeah, she'd only been there for a few months, from my understanding. She had just met her boyfriend about 9 months or a few months earlier, and after 9 months, they moved in together. So, based on what you know, what happened that night? Let's start off from the beginning. What do you know of what happened?
So that night she was home. They were having a good time, like a house party. Neighbors were upset, had called the police. Her boyfriend, Brad, was a bit younger than she was. So the neighbor had called the cops on them. He was hauled off for underage drinking.
Mm-hmm.
She got really upset, went downtown, she went to the gas station that night, which the gas station is maybe 10 minutes from Harrisburg. Started there, was drinking, having a good time. And then she had ended up at the Hardware Bar, which used to be a bar downtown Harrisburg. It was extremely popular. Everybody went there. Got into some type of altercation, and Cody had taken her back to the gas station to pick up her car and then took her home. She's home, probably a little bit intoxicated, starts an argument with the neighbors. They're ticked off again because she's drinking, noise. They're mad about like the noise and her partying. They get into a pretty heated argument, and the cops are called again, and they come out, have a conversation with her. And from what I know, and excuse me, it's been a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
There was another incident where the cops had called again because of noise. And when they come out the third time, there was nothing going on. Everything was quiet. They looked, it was like everybody had been asleep, and they just went about their way. The next day, Cody had woken up, and she was nowhere to be seen. He just thought that she had left, from what I understand. And her purse, her phone was left behind. Her dog, whom, from what I understand, was taken everywhere with her. And her car was left in, the driveway, but there was no Kortne. And that was the last time anybody had seen her.
Do you know what time it was when the officers arrived the third time that it was quiet?
I think it was around 3:00 in the morning, if I remember the details correctly.
The second time they were called was about 3:30. The third time they were called out there was around 4:10, and they arrived at 4:20 a.m. Do you know who Cody is by any chance? Are you familiar with him?
I just know of him from mutual friends, and the person that he was with that night. Again, mutual friends. I don't want to go too far into that on my end, but he's like a pretty nice person. Again, there was nothing personal with him and I didn't really know him at all, just knew of him, if that makes any sense.
Right. Now, so he went back with Courtney back to her house, right?
Yes,
And he stayed the night there, correct?
that's right.
Okay. And so he left the following morning, um, doesn't see her, takes off, um, tries to call and text her. Um, apparently he's passed the lie detector test as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that they gave him a poly and he passed it.
Right. And so
And there's one thing that some people might be confused. The gas station's a bar, guys.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Big Blue.
yeah, the gas station is a bar. This is the gas station. Right. This is the interior of the gas station.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We loved it there.
Is it still open?
No, they closed down. I would say probably close to 6 years ago, maybe. Yeah, haven't reopened since, but it was a lot of fun. So that picture, okay, you do have a title there. That is the hardware bar. So the hardware bar was a very popular spot. They would have like girls come out with like hard hats and they would like pour shots in your mouth. Everybody was there. I'm pretty sure they weren't checking IDs, but yeah, it was a very fun spot to be.
Got you. And so they went from the gas station to the hardware bar. Now, so you said that something happened at the hardware bar?
Yeah, so evidently there was an altercation with a couple people that were there. I actually reached out to a friend of mine who was there that night. She had witnessed it. She said it was exactly as it was stated in the press, you know, that there was just something very little happened. Again, I'm trying to be careful with what I say because I don't know those details.
Right.
And I'm sure from the ongoing situation from previous that night, she was probably really heated. I had never seen her like in a heated altercation before. She was always very nice, bubbly, never confrontational. So I'm sure what happened that night had a lot to do with just her boyfriend being arrested. So they get into a fight, and then Cody takes her back to her car to the gas station.
Got you. And so apparently, from what I could find, they kicked her out and she had to text her friends to come back outside for her, correct? Is this bar large?
The hardware bar?
Yeah. Is it a big bar? It doesn't look very large in these pictures.
So the hardware bar is closed down now, but it's actually, that was a 3-story bar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. Well, that makes sense.
It had been a couple bars in the past. Like it was Dragonfly. Now it's called, I don't know, it's some bizarre name. They actually just opened it after it being the Susquehanna Ale House. It's been through a couple of names.
Got you. And so she goes home. She's vanished. Is there any red flags in Courtney's life that jumps out at you? Anything she was involved in?
Yeah, I would say the rumor was that she was heavily into the drug scene. I wouldn't have thought that knowing her. Again, when I say knowing her, you have to understand, we're talking like a social, like seeing her out every weekend. At that time, we were partying a lot. That was probably the biggest party stage in my life. But I wouldn't have assumed that she was into selling drugs, maybe smoking a little bit of pot. But from what I understand, she definitely was selling drugs. And I hate to say that because I don't know exactly.
Right. So she was, and that's what I was able to find too, that she was possibly selling narcotics. And that there's been a link that this is possibly involved with a narcotic type of situation. Blue, you're muted, bro. You're muted.
I said, thank you, Leticia Guerra, for the $5 super sticker.
We appreciate you, Leticia. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so, now, what leading after the incident, right after she goes missing, what other rumors start circulating about her disappearance, if any sightings of her? You know,
there was so many rumors. In fact, it was crazy. I gotta tell you, despite anything to the connection of thinking like this could be a Coburger or not, which was something I did think of, this town really loved her. She was an impressionable person. A lot of people had a lot of theories. They were thinking, there's people who didn't want to believe it was drug related. There were people who were very concerned that someone followed her back from the bar. What people have to understand is that Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania, and 81 runs straight from Harrisburg all the way. Actually, it runs from Maryland all the way up to the northern part of the state, which runs through the Poconos.
Right.
So there was a lot of speculations. Did someone follow her from the bar? Did the neighbor kill her? That was probably the biggest rumor, because there were so many altercations that night that it almost seemed like obnoxious. And then there was the rumor that, was it a drug deal gone wrong?
Right.
And then
there
was the thought that she was murdered that night, wrapped up into a rug, dumped into a nearby lake. Somebody did come out that was close to her and said, that she had heard this. They drained that lake. They did everything they could to figure out if she was in fact dumped in this lake, and they found nothing. In fact, her dad was like, we just think that, people are pretty much desperate at this point to figure out where she is. And these rumors have gone into so many directions, and it has been a while, but she is definitely still talked about. People are still wondering where she is. After Coburger, it does put up another question mark. You just never know what happened. We have no real leads right now. Her dog was left behind, all her personal belongings. So I just don't know.
Was there a sign of, a struggle, forced entry, things of that nature in their house?
Nothing like that.
Nothing. Wow.
Nope.
Wow. So she just vanished. Any possibility that she could have taken off? I know that her boyfriend got arrested. She thought he was going to be going to jail for a long time. Any thoughts that perhaps she just left?
That's a good question, Daniel. They actually came up with, after this being cold for a while, somebody came up with this picture on Facebook, and it was Florida State. It was a college game, and they had zoomed in on somebody that was sitting in the crowd. And I got to tell you, it was kind of eerie. It looked almost identical to her. The cops did look further into it. They figured out that it wasn't her, from what I understand. But I can say this much: she didn't run. Right. She definitely did not run. Her boyfriend was in jail. She loved her dog. She had left everything behind. She was close to her parents. There was no reason for her to just run away. But, like you said, the speculation of drugs, you just don't know.
Right.
But I don't think she did.
Thank you so much, Helena, for your $1,500 super sticker. I'm sure it's not US dollars. I'm not sure what ISK is, but we thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. And so, just you thinking out loud, what made you contact us to tell us that you thought that Coburger may have been involved? What was some of the flags or eye-popping things about this case that made you think that possibly Coburger was involved?
So I think anything's really possible. I wasn't sure if this is something that you would even think was plausible, but when I look at it, I'm like, she was beautiful. She was blonde. She was in the bar scene. Coburger was in the bar scene. When you look at the history of narcotics, he moved to Idaho, right? So if he was willing to move to Idaho, I'm sure he was traveling throughout Pennsylvania. Someone to go to the lengths that he did to move to Idaho, sure, it may have been educational, but I'm certain that he didn't just start in Idaho. Even if it was small stuff, he probably was traveling throughout Pennsylvania at least. Her dog was left behind. All of her items were left behind. Just a weird situation. I keep thinking, what if he was at the bar and saw her and followed her? And again, he maybe there's no connection, right?
Right.
I do think people need to think that they're, I mean, I don't want to say they should put the two together, but it's not impossible.
Right. In fact, there was a woman that came out that was close to Coburger that said that she drove him around for, I think, hours trying to score some drugs in the area. And so, he's not a stranger from taking long drives, based on the things that we've seen from him, especially at this time of day or night. He's left multiple times based on his cell phone pings for hours at a time, going long distances throughout the night. He seemed to be some sort of insomniac where, you had his neighbors, claiming that he was cleaning, all hours of the night. And I don't know if that was just after the incident that occurred in Idaho, if that was before. But the fact that he was still, doing those types of things at his parents' house during the middle of the night when they did the raid, leads me to believe that he was somebody that was up all night, all the time. But
that's
yeah,
my point. Like, I don't think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Daniel.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of people say that Bryan Kohberger was sloppy with what he did. I think at first he wasn't. And
Right.
I think his desires probably got ahead of him and he became sloppy. But, if you look at Jeffrey Dahmer, who would have thought he was tied to the hitchhiker that he killed? You just don't know, right? There's 7.2 billion people in the world, and you can't keep track of all of them. People are left to their own devices. And who's to say, like, he could have ended up down here. He could have been in that bar. That could have been the beginning steps. Maybe he wasn't, but just to assume that he wasn't, I don't think that's fair.
Right. No, obviously, when you look at a case, you got to keep your eyes open. When you go and you get tunnel vision, that makes for a bad investigator.
Right.
You have to be open, and you have to be open to change. Like, for instance, let's talk about the Richard Allen case. A lot of people, tunnel visioned on Ronald Logan. Even after the fact that they've arrested Richard Allen, they're still tunnel visioned on Ronald Logan. And those they don't have investigative background. They don't have investigative training. And so I can see why that happens. For me, when I look at a case, I'm open to a lot of things. I'm open to, for instance, in the Coburger case, it being Coburger and it not being Coburger. That doesn't change or sway my opinion about anything. I look at what's the evidence points. And if there's a piece of evidence that points to somebody is either guilty or innocent, I follow that. And so if you go in closed-minded and think, oh, no, this is definitely not him, well, you're going to miss out on a possibility of seeing
That's
a
right.
connection. You know what I'm saying?
How did you know if the police did an investigation and see if anybody broke into the house or anything that night?
There was nothing there. I mean, we're talking clean. And, again, maybe for someone who ended up where Coburger did in the end, where he slid through a sliding door and, there was multiple traces of somebody there. We don't know. Maybe Kortne's door was unlocked. I might be just throwing something out there that doesn't make any sense. But like you said, if you're not looking at all corners of the scenario, you could be missing something that's pretty valuable. But either
100%.
way, I just want people to know, regardless, that she's still missing. And that really did shake our town. This girl was impressionable. I mean, people are still mourning her. People that were way, 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 way closer to her than I wouldn't even put myself in that spectrum.
Right.
Knowing how close some people were to her, I don't think this town is ever going to shake that until they figure out what happened to her. Hershey is a very beautiful area. Harrisburg's a very beautiful area. Pennsylvania in general is a very beautiful area.
Mhm.
Crime is not super high in those areas. Harrisburg, yes. Downtown, absolutely. But for where
Right.
she was in Palmyra, no.
Gotcha.
So for something like that to happen, it was very impressionable. It freaked a lot of people out. And to know that it's been all these years, we're talking, God, over 11 years, she's still missing. Yeah.
Right. Now, there's one thing that I noticed about her back door here is it's a sliding glass door as well.
I was going to say that.
I mean, there's some similarities here. I mean, when like I said, before you even reached out and I started going through the Pennsylvania, either missing persons or what's the word I'm looking for, or unsolved cases.
Right.
This one stood out to me for a couple of reasons. The first reason was during this time, Coburger was involved in narcotics.
Right.
You're looking at the time of when this person possibly went missing, which is around 4 a.m. You're looking at a dog being left behind. You're looking at sliding glass door in the back. You're looking at the description of the female. She looks very similar to some of the girls that were in the Idaho residence. You know, I actually wrote most of these down.
We've got the blonde hair, the blue eyes. And for anybody who's watching this saying, there's no way this is related, you really do need to look at these points. You know, dog was left behind, like you said, sliding glass door, narcotics, you know, beautiful, beautiful person, blonde hair, blue eyes, impressionable. There was an altercation that night. So I'm sure a ton of people witnessed it.
See, and the thing was, there was a witness left behind, but he was asleep.
That's true. That's true. Somebody left behind. That's another thing too.
That's a good point, Big Blue.
Like that's.
I guess there's 100K finders.
A reward.
Reward.
Yeah. Now, like for instance, if somebody gets away with something, right? Don't you think that they're going to continue to do the same thing in a similar manner?
Absolutely.
Like, so
I am not convinced that Kohberger just started in Idaho. I'm not convinced.
Right. And so for me, if he left somebody alive in this just allegedly speculation, whatever, the whole 9 yards. If he left somebody alive in this case, right? Let's just say it was him. He left somebody alive. They never tracked him down. A lot of suspicion looking at a lot of different places. You know, why not do the same thing somewhere else? That way suspicion doesn't be brought to you. You know, it could be a motive operandi that people are left behind. That's an MO. And so, I mean, the MO here is possibly backsliding door, young lady, 21 years old,
right,
blonde hair, 4 o'clock in the morning, dog left behind, a witness or a person left in the house alive. I mean, if you're not putting those, you know, dots, connecting those dots to at least, you know, spark an interest in this case to say, hey, you know, maybe there's something here or there. You know, this lady also had possibly been involved in drugs. Kohberger was, involved with drugs. And so, you know, there's some dots here to connect. And we're, you know, I'm going to go through it all once we're finished talking with you to kind of explain everything all together. Because to me personally, if I was a betting man, would I bet on Kohberger being the actor in this case?
Maybe not.
Versus some of the other people that are there? Probably not. But would I be wrong to not look in this direction based on those criterias of MO? I think so. And so, you know, like I said, we started off the show with a private investigator coming out and talking about how he suspects that Kortne may have been a victim to an SK, right? That there was, between the years 2012 and 2014, 18 different either missing or women whose lives were taken, matching a very similar age and description of Kortne, of the girls in Idaho, the whole 9 yards. And so there are some dots to be connected. Now, is it possible, probable? If I were to bet, I think I'd put it on the neighbor. Right. But they checked his house. They brought in dogs to his house too. So it's there's a lot of suspicion here. Definitely.
I think that no matter what, like you said, just even looking at, you know, the probability of her being a victim of a serial killer, for people to assume that it was this person or this person because it was personal,
right?
The cops did do their due diligence. I mean, they lined up people, they did their polys, and they made sure that they did a process of elimination. None of those people are in jail. So it's not impossible that someone, you know, it could have been just the right time, the right place, that somebody could have been staking her out saw that there was confrontation that night. Again, people might say, you know what, you're throwing something and trying to see if it sticks.
Right.
You just don't know. Nonetheless, she's still missing. And this is still a cold case. People should still be trying to look out for her or remember her, because I think at some point she will come up. I don't want to say that. I really don't want to say that she will be found dead. I would like to assume that she is missing, but in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that she's missing. I do believe she's dead.
Right. No, I mean, there's a good possibility of that given the time frame. A lot of people have theorized that maybe perhaps she took off, she hurt herself or something. And I think if that was the case, then I think she would have been found by now if she had hurt herself.
How about family history? I know this area a little bit. There's big Amish and Mennonite communities out there, right?
You know your stuff, Big Blue. I'm proud.
Yeah. Why he's on the show.
Is there any theories of her running to one of those, to hide, or?
I don't know. You bring up a good question, Daniel, about, her being in a not so favorable type of lifestyle. I can't speak for what she could have been running from, but I think given the situation, knowing how much she loved her family, I could never, and I don't think anybody in this town that actually have met her or knew her. Like I said, there's a lot of people who are very close to her. I think it would be out of their minds to think that she would actually run away. But like you said, you just don't know. Why do people run away given certain situations? We just don't know. But it is a good question, Big Blue. In the Amish community, I don't think anybody's running toward that. I think they're running away from it.
There's no technology. There's no Facebook.
You're right. No, it's a good thought. Very good thought. I will go look during my next house and see if she's drinking water somewhere.
People run away from that, but there's people who might run towards it. You never know.
You never know. It's a good question. What do you think, Daniel? What are your thoughts? If you had to say what happened, what would your thoughts be?
Oh, I'd say it was Todd, the neighbor. And I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go through it all here in a little bit, y'all. So stay tight. I'm gonna go through the timeline and very detail about the information. I did quite a bit of research on this case. I know a lot of people are putting in their, hey, this happened. I'm well aware of everything that occurred that night. That's been reported, speculated, and a lot of those things. To me, if I had to put my money on something, it'd probably be Todd. I would. There's a couple of things that might equal out to Coburger, and one of them is the person that she got in an argument with at the bar that ended up kicking her out. Was supposedly a suspected drug dealer that she accused of trying to have somebody break into her house and steal money from her. And there's also a rumor that the argument was either that or that she had owed him a ton of money, things of that nature. Now, I don't know too much about Pennsylvania and their drug runs and stuff, but if this guy was like a bigger drug dealer, like a big one that they were supposedly claiming, I don't think he's going to get his hands dirty. Those are something that you get somebody else to do for you. And, is it possible you get somebody that's hooked on drugs that you're selling, somebody that's young and dumb, like 18-year-old Bryan Kohberger? You never know. And then you show him a picture of who this girl is and say, hey, go rough her up, do whatever it is. And he takes it too far. He had a history of, at that time, he had aggression. He was fighting. He was being a bully, those type of things. And so I don't see it not, I definitely see that there could be a possibility there, but
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying, oh my God, Bryan Coburger definitely did this. But is it possible? Maybe. Maybe people should start thinking more about this. Not just of Kortne, but who else Bryan Coburger could have harmed or killed in Pennsylvania. Because I'm sure there's people. If you know anything about Pennsylvania, it is probably a great place to get away with murder. There's a lot of forests, a lot of mountains. People keep to their
Yeah.
own. I'm not trying to be that crazy person, but I'm just saying, you know, you can go for miles and not see a home. We're talking like close to 2 hours without seeing a home when you get up north. So it's just something to think about.
For sure, for sure. Well, Holly, I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story and your information about your relationship with Kortne and bringing to life this case to us. And do you have any questions for us before we let you go?
No, you guys have been great. I really am grateful that you read the email. I wasn't even sure that you would read it and respond. You have been so amazing. You have been very great with communicating with me, and I appreciate you listening and at least bringing light to what happened to Kortne, nonetheless of it being with Coburger or not. You and Big Blue. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm going to pull you out. You can hang out in the backstage if you'd like, or just head on to YouTube to watch the rest. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you. So let's break down this case, y'all. So July 28, 2012, 9 p.m., Palmyra Police Department and Lebanon County Adult Probation respond to 810 West Main Street. This is an apartment that's shared by Kortne Stouffer and her boyfriend, Brad. Brad at the time is 20 years old on probation with an ankle monitor for DUI. He's not allowed to be drinking. Somebody called saying that they saw alcohol going into the apartment, contacted his probation office, and they arrested him. Now, it's been, to me, the first question that comes out is, who the hell called 911, right? Now, there's been some, what's the word I'm looking for? Conversation out there of it being one person or another person that called 911, whether it's the downstairs neighbor, the side neighbor. I suspect it was Todd Saksek. I hope I pronounced that right. He is the downstairs neighbor that had the altercation with Kortne later that night. I did find one website that said that he was the person that called, but it was only one website that said he was the person that called. So somebody called just to warn them that Brad who was on house arrest with an ankle monitor, was consuming alcohol. They arrest him and book him in, right? Now, Kortne freaks out. She had, at that point, I think there was like 7 people at the house, right? She freaks out. A couple people get cited for underage drinking. The rest of the people leave. She freaks out because he was on probation, I think, for the next 4 years. And so she's assuming that because he violated his probation, that he's going to be going to jail for 4 years. And so she calls her mom, tells her mom all these things, right? And talks about how upset she is about her neighbors and how, she's had a problem with a neighbor. And Todd Saksek in particular, she tells her mom that, she calls him creepy. She says that he stares at her, and she caught him recording her on her balcony at one point. And so she thinks it's him. It is what it is. She contacts her friend, and her friend is Cody Pruitt. And let's bring him up real quick. So he contacts Cody. Cody then tells Kortne to meet them at the gas station bar. She meets up with Cody Pruitt and Milton Rodriguez. Here are pictures of these two guys. And another couple. They decide to then go to the hardware bar in Milton's car with Cody driving it, a 2004 Acura. And so they end up going out that direction. They leave Kortne's car back at the gas station, right? And so while they're there at the other bar, it's at around 1:50 a.m. Kortne engages with a verbal altercation with the girlfriend of Arverard Brown at the hardware bar. Now, Arverard Brown is suspected possibly of being involved in narcotics as well. Now, there's a bit of speculation here as to what the argument was. Some say it was that Brown had sent somebody to Kortne's house to break in and steal money and or drugs. Apparently, Brown was a connect for Kortne, from what I understand. Now, the other rumor is that Kortne owed Brown a lot of money, and that's what the argument was about. That's been basically the two different stories there. So Kortne ends up getting kicked out. She texts her buddy Cody here to, it's time to go. And so they all leave. They go back. They drop Milton off at his house, right? And then they drop the couple off, and then they go. Cody then takes Kortne back to the gas station where her car is at. Kortne says that she can drive her vehicle, that she's all right. Cody follows her just to be on the safe side and ends up spending the night there, right? Now, they arrive back at her residence at about 3 a.m., right? Now, when she arrives, she sees that they see that the neighbors are outside drinking, right? So they get upset about this. She gets upset about it. They get into an altercation, and long story short, police are called, right? And during this altercation, it has been stated that supposedly Kortne kicked Todd, the neighbor, down and won over, right? And so, right, yeah, no, I know, Dr. Thrifty. And so the neighbors, supposedly she kicked him, and police come out there, basically tell them, hey, everybody needs to quit it, stop it. We got to come back out here. Somebody's going to jail, right? So they end up leaving that area at 3:49 a.m. So they're gone for about 22 minutes. At 4:11, Todd contacts the police again and reports that Kortne is screaming through the walls and stomping on the floor, slamming doors and making threats to him and other neighbors. She was still fairly pissed off about this entire situation. Cody verifies that she was jumping and slamming on the door, on the floor, and doing those things. Police get called out again. They don't arrive until 4:31. So it took them another 21 minutes to show up. It was the Palmyra Police Department and also two other departments from nearby jurisdictions. And so everything's quiet. Nobody answers the door. Nobody answers the door at Todd's house. Nobody answers the door at Kortne's house. Now, Cody says that they saw the police coming up and they shut down the TV and everything off, right? They closed everything off and turned off the lights, and they didn't want to go to jail. He says he then went to sleep and fell asleep right then and there, woke up at about 7:30 in the morning, and he didn't see Kortne. Now, he says he didn't go through every room. He just kind of yelled out, hey, I got to go. And he takes off. He goes to a gas station called Sheetz. While he's there, he texts Kortne saying, hey, are you okay? And also arranges to bring back Milton's car back to his residence. And so there's been footage and videos of Cody out at the gas station, and verifies everything that he says, right? And so at approximately 2:42 p.m., Scott, which is Kortne's mom, I'm sorry, this is the next day. So Scott and Wendy, which is Kortne's parents, they try to call her and contact her throughout the entire day. The following day, on Monday, which was July 30th, she was supposed to show up to the Lebanon Fair. And when she didn't, that's when her family reports her missing. So Cody, Milton, none of those guys that were with her the night before, none of them ever report her missing, any of those things, right? They, let me backtrack. They report her missing because they go to her house. When they go to her house, nothing's disturbed. There's one thing that I did notice was the TV was on. They said that the TV was on. When the police arrived at 4:30 in the morning, the TV wasn't on. It was quiet. Everything was quiet. Everything was off. All right. The TV was on. Keys were in the house. Wallet was in the house. Nothing was disturbed. No sign of disturbance. None of those things. Right. And then the car is outside. Windows are down. And her phone is plugged in near her bed, from what I understand. And so that's when they called to report her missing, and the search goes on. They go looking for her for extended period of time. They suspect Todd, right? Because he was the guy that, she got in an altercation and supposedly kicked. Now, at 7:56 a.m. on July 29th, so the next day after the incident, Todd goes and reports to, it's at 7:30, I'm sorry. Todd goes to the Palmyra Police Department and makes a formal complaint against Kortne for kicking him during the incident that occurred in the night. And so they start doing an investigation and come to find out that night of the incident, Todd ends up calling the landlord and telling the landlord that, Kortne's out of control. She's loud, this, that, and a third, that they need to evict her and get her kicked out. And if they don't do anything, he'll take care of it to some effect. Very, very threatening, in my opinion. And so the family's out in the area and they're watching the house. They see Todd leave with a couple of black bags throughout the day, a short time after her disappearance. Kind of find out, apparently he was doing some renovation work. That's what they say. They brought in dogs. They searched his house. They never found anything. And so that was the suspicious part about Todd. The suspicious part about possibly anything with drugs was that she was selling narcotics. I've been able to confirm that in several different places, that she was dealing drugs. What drugs they were, I've been having a difficult time to locate which narcotics exactly that she was dealing. I've not found anything that specifies that. That the argument at the hardware shop or bar was referencing some sort of financials dealing with possible drugs, whether it was somebody breaking into her house or her owing money for drugs. One of those two, right? And so let's go through this. You got any questions, Blue, for me right now?
No, I'm listening through.
Okay, so let's see. I wrote all this down. All right.
See, on the comment, one thing on the comment, somebody did put that, I guess maybe they found her cigarettes outside when she went to go smoke. And right here, this one. She ran into him again.
Oh, yeah, that's possible. I mean, that's one thing that I thought too. Maybe she did go outside. But, it would have had to have been after the police had left. And for Todd to go to the police station that morning, if he was in some sort of altercation like that, I think he'd have some sort of scratches, bruises, cuts, something of that nature. They searched his house. They didn't find, any type of evidence of blood or anything in the area. You know what I mean? Nobody talked about that. So my assumption is that if her life was taken on that location, it was probably due to strangulation. And so is it possible that occurred out there? Maybe, but if he's strangling somebody, it's not as quick as a knife, especially or anything else, right? Like a weapon when you're using your hands. And so you're going to have some defensive wounds put on you. And so, somebody says Daniel's voice sounds so young today. I actually have COVID, y'all. So yeah. I'm not feeling the greatest, but I'm pushing through.
And I did not give it to him. I was not near him last week. Okay.
Oh man, you gave it to me through the stream, yo. You gave it to me through the stream.
Is that powerful?
Yeah.
It's the feds, man. The feds put it in our drinking water again.
Right. Yeah, dude. I wouldn't be surprised, man. So one thing also that ends up happening, right? In 2014, Wendy, Kortne's mom, ends up receiving a Facebook message from a person named Amanda who claims to be Kortne's friend. And she stated that it was a drug-related offense, that two men went to her house looking for drugs or money and ended up taking her life, wrapping her up into a carpet and throwing her into the Memorial Lake. Now, the Memorial Lake has been somewhat searched. It's 85 acres. And let's bring up the article about that. So East Hanover Township. The cadaver dog was used only about 30 minutes during the search for the body of a missing woman. Meanwhile, volunteer drivers stood ready, but their services were never called. 4 state policemen using 1 John boat and some equipment told Scott Stouffer they had sufficiently searched for his daughter in the 85-acre Lebanon County lake in little over 5 hours on Tuesday and had found nothing. So, Blue, 85 acres, that's not a small piece of area, is it?
No. And then only 5 guys. I mean,
4 guys in 1 John boat.
One boat.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of cases where the police miss a lot of. There's a YouTube group I follow that they look for missing peoples in their cars, and they find a lot of cars that the police miss. A lot,
dude. So many, and the thing is, they're in a John boat, so I don't care if there's 5 of them. It's only 1 boat. And they might be using different equipment, looking in different directions. But it's not the same as if you had 3 or 4 boats out there searching from one area and doing like a grid search, things of that nature. And so, but real quick, thank you, Sarah Scott, for becoming a new member. We appreciate you.
Thank you. But here's the thing, though. They're not looking for a car. They're not looking for anything metal. So they're going to be using depth finders.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't say how deep that lake is either. 85 acres is pretty big to be looking for in 1 John boat. And it doesn't say how far afterwards did they look for her, because the body decomposes so much in the water.
It was 2 years.
It would have been bones by then.
Well, the thing is, here's the thing. If they weighted her down and put her in a carpet and dumped her into the lake, and let's just say that the lake, that she was able to stay down there, I don't think you're going to be able to pull up a carpet with a depth finder. We go fishing.
Yeah.
And I got a depth finder on my boat. I don't see things that clearly.
No, I mean, it depends on, maybe you have like a $3,000-$4,000 depth finder, might show a little bit better quality, but the cheap depth finders that are on most boats, the $500 ones, which is cheap in most people's boats, they only show graphs. You know what I mean? They only show depths and graphs.
I'll tell you, my depth finder ain't cheap, bro. And so, but when you're looking at that, it's a sonogram issue or sono type of picture that you're looking at. It's not clear. It's not. I know they have some that you can kind of see pretty clear. They're black and white, things like that. But to see something laying on the floor that's been there for 2 years, who's to say mud or dirt or things haven't fallen on top of it?
It would be stirred up, especially like I lived in a small town in Wisconsin, and it was a smaller lake. It was more like a pond. It was probably like, I would say 10 acres, right?
Right.
You can only use John boats on there. I one day was fishing and threw my fishing rod in there, and I don't know, the handle broke. My rod went in there, and I had to go look for it. I saw where it landed, and it was not deep, but I went in there to go look for it, and just by me standing in it, I would go like knee deep in mud. So it depends on what kind of like structure the bottom of the lake is.
That's true too. You're very right. I mean, and supposedly, according to Amanda, they weighted her down, and so if they weighted her down and her body went down and submerged in mud, and then it just kind of sank in the mud, you're not going to be able to see that. I'm you're probably going to have to get divers to go down there and basically hand search the bottom of the lake to see if something's there, or drain the thing. But that'd be kind of difficult. But in my opinion, I don't think they did enough when it comes to the search. I think there's still a pretty decent possibility there that if she was dumped in a lake, that she could be there. I mean, how many cases have we looked into, like you mentioned, where, I mean, look at Vanessa Guillen. They had GPS dots where the guy that ended up taking her live, they had GPS spots of where he was at out in the middle of nowhere, and searched that entire area. These folks not only went back, undug her, and burned her again, and then put concrete and then dug her into a different hole. But they never found anything. They found evidence. They even found the evidence of the initial burning, where and it wasn't even that far away from where they put her.
Found the body. Yeah,
right.
They found the case the burnt case lid where they burned her in.
Right, exactly. And they didn't find it. Wasn't even the police that found the body. It was construction workers on the side of the road.
Yeah.
That were, doing some development off the side of the road, and they found it in, her body in the canister or whatever.
Even like the police didn't even find the burnt case. It was that investigator that does the free searches. And his daughter was kidnapped and murdered, and he does case. I can't remember his name. I had his name in my head earlier. He's from Texas, though.
Right. But the thing is too, like, so, and Holly actually had just put this in the message thing. Why would Amanda lie about that? She messaged somebody's mother about their missing child with such horrific details. You know what I mean? And she's never come off of that.
Yeah.
And so, it kind of goes full circle with who was she arguing, or we know who it was. Mr. Brown, I believe, was what his name was. Let me go back up here and look for it real quick.
So say they weighed her down. Sometimes people don't weigh you down with metal. They'll put concrete on you. So it just varies.
Right.
And
if somebody weighted them down, put concrete, throw them in, you think it's their first time doing something like that?
No. Because concrete doesn't have metal to be able to detect it with the metal detectors. It does disintegrate after a while, but not that quickly.
Right.
And then it depends on how deep it is. So I would say, man, maybe that lake's somewhere to look. But with those lakes, I don't know if they're like here in Texas where we have a lot of rock bottom lakes. So things tend to stay down there for a while. But in those really muddy, murky lakes up north that I've been to, I mean, I remember we wouldn't go swimming because two things. It was you get stuck halfway walking in there, and two, there was leeches everywhere. So we hated going into the rivers and lakes when we would get our lure stuck. Here in Texas, if I get my lure stuck, I mean, everybody's going to get a show. I'm taking my shirt off, I'm jumping in, and I'm going to swim down there and get it. Like, as long as it's less than about 15 feet, I can go about 15 feet down and come back with one breath, but not up there, man. Or you come back, you have leeches all over your legs and stuff.
Damn. That's true, man. You're absolutely right, though. See, I'm looking at, no, that's not Harvard Brown. I'm trying to see if I can find something on this guy real quick. No, that's not him either. Let's see. We have a $2 super sticker coming in from Sarah Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So to me, the most likely thing then, just kind of thinking out loud, the Kobe went to sleep, right? He passed the polygraph test, so let's assume everything that he said was true. We know that those things aren't 100% accurate, but let's just say what he says is true, right? Let's try to break this down. If he went to sleep right after the police left, or when they took off, which was at 4:36 a.m., right? If he fell asleep then, he only slept for about 30 minutes. And then, 3 hours, I'm sorry. He slept for about 3 hours from 4:30 to 7:30 and then took off, right? Thank you, Skittles, for your 109.
I like that name, Skittles Riddles.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. In my opinion, you have two different people here. You have the drug situation and you have the neighbor, Todd. It sounds like Todd and Kortne were really at each other. She even kicked him. He went and filed a police report the following morning. Now, do you think that police report, that he went down to the police station, filed a police report, right? You think that's possibly him trying to interject himself into the crime? See what they know, go down to the police station, see if they're aware that she's missing?
I think so, man. I think
right,
because if he called the police again at 4 o'clock in the morning, like they said he did, and he didn't come out, nor did they did upstairs, where was he?
Right.
Why didn't he do his report then? I mean, yeah, something to tell you, come to the office if you want to do what is it?
The police report.
Well, not a police report, but also like if they want to do like where they have to be a certain distance from each other.
Oh, restraining order.
Restraining order. Maybe he went to do that, but it doesn't say he did that though.
Nah, it just says Todd Saksek appeared at the Palmyra Police Department to make a formal complaint and request charges against Kortne for kicking him during the prior incident. That was at 7:30 a.m. And so this guy was drinking all night. He was drinking with the neighbors, was partying. He also only slept for about 3 hours because he's the one that made the phone call at 4:30 in the morning that initiated the police to get there. Right now, he says that things quieted down, so that's why he didn't answer the door. That was his theory. But, you know, him going to the police department that next morning to file that charge, in my opinion, might be a fishing expedition to see what they know.
Yeah, that's a good. I would say so, because just like when we have that theory with Coburger, you know, he went around the police department afterwards. You know, maybe he's trying to see if anybody got called, if they were. So it's pretty fishy to me. The neighbor sounds pretty fishy. The altercation, and then after that, you know, the threat that he gave the landlord, and I wonder if they had him do a lie detector test.
Right. Interesting. I know that they made they interviewed a lot of folks, the neighbors. I don't know if the neighbors ever did the lie detector test. I know that Cody did. Now, Cody worked at, from what I understand, at some horse track, right? And that's where he worked. I think that's where he met Mr. Milton, because Milton's family, they had horses, they did horse races, things like that. They come from money. Is it possible that, see, I don't think Milton was involved. He got dropped off. He didn't have his car. I don't know how many cars he has. If he's from money, maybe he has more than one. Why drive an 04 Acura, though? It's a very old car for that year. A lot of questions.
But maybe it was a college student and that's the hand me down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But these guys were also older. You know, Cody was about 29 years old, I think, at the time. I want to say Milton's probably around the same age, given the fact that he was friends with them. Now, when it comes to Cody, he says that he was just friends with Kortne. Scott, which is Kortne's dad, said that he suspected that Cody had a crush on her. When he said he didn't know who he was, he had never heard of him prior to. And I found it interesting that when police asked him what his relationship was with Kortne, he said she was like his sister. However, he never met her family. That doesn't sound like somebody you would consider your family. Right? You're muted, by the way.
Yeah. Sorry, I was typing something. I had to jump off a little early today. I got a message that I had to go to a farther clinic. So.
Oh no, it's quite all right, Blue. We'll probably be jumping off here soon, anyways.
Holly might want to jump on for the last 10 minutes if you want, and then I'll jump off here at 8:50.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'll bring her back in, and I want to say thank you to George and thank you to Skittles for your all's membership, and George for buying 5 memberships. Thank you so much, George.
Yeah, thanks, George. And if y'all ain't subscribers, if y'all want to be part of our subscribers, it's free. We're trying to get up to 50K.
Yeah, we're trying to get to 50K, man. That's our goal. We can hit 50K. I'll take the glasses off at 50K. I know that's been a situation that everybody's been talking about, asking about. When am I going to remove my shades? Long story short, y'all, I do have something called keratoconus in my right eye, where the cornea of your eye continues to cone out until eventually you go blind. So lights do bother me a little bit. And so I know I get that question a lot. Why does he wear glasses? Blah, blah, blah. And it's bright in here. You know how many how many lights I got? And so,
and at 50K, I take off my shirt. I'm just joking.
oh man, dude, don't go down to 40.
What am I kidding? Just a couple of beers and I'll take off my shirt. So
Right, don't take no 50K. Let's see. But you know what, man? I think, you know what? I'll bring Holly. Are you good to come back in? You can give me a thumbs up if you're good. All right, cool. We'll bring you back in. Boom. So you listen to a lot of the stuff that we said after the fact, right? A lot of the things you didn't know I knew about. I didn't conversate with you on anything about what I researched or saw. Were you aware of all those details?
No, we were under the impression that the police really searched the lake. And I think that's probably the most emotional part about this entire episode, is knowing that, you know, this has really been a heartfelt situation in our town. And especially people knowing her. She was, bye, Blue.
Bye.
And I think them not doing their due diligence, I was under the impression that they did. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people do think that they did. Knowing the details that you found, I don't think they did. And it's sad because I think, knowing the situation from that night, I think they could have done more that night too. You know, searched. Why? I mean, just for you even knowing that Cody spoke of the TV being turned off, them not wanting to be arrested. And now, like, I don't know anybody who knows that. Right? There's a lot of mystery, and it is sad. Yeah. So who hurt her? Who took her? Like I said, it could be a far reach with Coburger, but I think our town deserves to know, and I think her family, most importantly, deserves to know what happened to her. So it bothers me to no end.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. You know, when I went through this, I had heard that there was rumors that the lake wasn't searched properly, and so I went digging through it. I spent probably the majority of the last 2 days on this case, just kind of going. Oh, of course, and just kind of going through every aspect of it so that I can see, one, is there a connection to Kohberger? Two, what really happened? You know, at the end of the day, there's a missing person that's been gone for 10 years, over 10 years, and a family that's still looking for answers. And
they put vigils all. I mean, I shouldn't say all the time in recent years, but they're very actively searching for her, and I think they deserve to know. And I think there's people who know what happened. I think for her friend to step up, her close confidant, and say what happened. Where did she come up with that information? That's what I really want to know. Why would she lie about it? And because there's certain people who are, you know, tied to great wealth in the scenario, I think people are scared. And I was very hesitant when, you know, coming onto the show. I think you remember me telling you, I didn't want to mention names. I knew of certain rumors, but it is something that makes me think, you know, there could be something a lot bigger there that people are just aren't turning that rock over, and I think they're scared.
No, I agree. I mean, there's something weird here. Yeah. Like even when you look at the night of the incident where they got called out there 3 times, you know, that second time, there was a report that Kortne kicked Todd.
Right. I didn't even know that.
They should have arrested her. And, you know, I don't think she'd want to go to jail, obviously, but she wouldn't be in this predicament for sure. She was locked up, at least that night. And, you know, if it was, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that maybe perhaps something else could have happened to her later or anything like that. We don't know those questions or answers, but, and would have, could haves are going to come through. I just don't understand why, you know, more wasn't done that night. Now, as far as like the third time they were called and not making entry into the building, you know, I know Scott, he was, you know, I saw an interview where he was like, you know, they should have gone in, they should have kicked the door down. Legally, they can't at that point. You know, you have to have exigent circumstances to break entry into a house, whether it's a yell, you see something through the window, things of that nature. And from all accounts, by the time that they showed up the next day, there was no sign of even a break-in at that point. And so I don't blame the officers for not making entry into their apartments.
I think people expected her to show up. I think people expected this to be a freak situation and her to show up later. But now that it's been over 11 years, people are starting to wonder, like, you know, they're going to point fingers to the cops and say, you should have done more. You know, you didn't do enough. Even in my own head, I'm like, for the third call, why was it more done? And you raise a great point. If she is kicking and screaming and there's all this commotion going on, like, you would think more would have been done. But like you said, you know, they didn't have a right to open her door or beat down her door. So they did exactly what they were supposed to do. And now we're left with a cold case because they did their job, you know, and now we have this weird scenario. And now she's been missing for 11 years. So it raises a lot of questions. And when I talk about Coburger, I think anybody is trying to just figure out what exactly happened, right? Could it have been that? Was it a freak situation where someone did follow her? Or was it in fact where the red flags are showing and it being the people that were rumored to be with her that night, you know, over a drug deal?
Right. And like I said, for me, does this fit a Kohberger MO? Maybe. There's a lot of details in here that are you can't pass. You know, you have, like I mentioned before, you have the description of the victim, very similar to the girls in Idaho. You have the timing in which this occurred, after 4 a.m. You have possibly, you know, drugs are being brought up in both cases. Whether or not they're involved in either case, who knows? But the thought of drugs have been brought up in both cases. Right. We know that Kohberger at this time, when he was 18, 19 years old, that he was involved in narcotics. We know that that he used people to give him rides, hours at a time sometimes, to go find drugs. And so is it possible, like I mentioned before, that, you know, somebody that maybe he knows, they have a similar connect? Maybe
my
this guy,
thoughts are this, you know, no matter what, it's like, I hope people are watching this and they're thinking of two things. Are there any red flags in their area of someone who went missing? You know, because in this area, I should say within Pennsylvania or even Idaho, you know, we don't know what he did in Idaho in the time he was there. And to remember what happened to Kortne, does somebody know something that they're not talking about? You know, there's just very vital situations going on within one scenario. And I think people need to be aware of both.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. And no, Holly's not Kortne. I see that a lot in the comment section. I guess they think you look alike.
Oh, well, thank you. She was a beautiful person, so that's very sweet.
And so, yeah, no, you know, when you look at this case and you look at the fact that also somebody went missing, we don't know if their life was taken or not. It's been speculated. Authorities believe foul play is involved, and somebody was left alive in the house.
That's right.
You know, that's another big glaring freaking clue, in my opinion. That's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute.
Even you talk about strangulation. It's like, you know, you were saying about this scenario with Scott, or I'm sorry, it's not Scott, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
If he did something like that, wouldn't there be some type of markings or evidence? I think about that with her house. So there has to be there had to have been something in that home revealing that she was taken, or for there to be nothing. I just don't understand that. I don't. And I know for a fact, just even with what I know of Kortne, there was no reason. I mean, you brought up the point, maybe she was fleeing from something. Maybe, right? This is just one of the certain points that could have been. I just don't think that was the case. So,
right. And you are correct. Nomad Life at 312. It was Richard Sheets and his girlfriend Janice. What was her last name? Janice something.
Reimschneider.
There you go. That's Janice. Yeah, that was their bottom stairs neighbor. Todd called the police at 4 o'clock the third time around. But the second time that they showed up is when supposedly Kortne had kicked him.
I think it's weird that Todd went to the cops. I think Big Blue brought up
The next morning?
Yeah, where he was like, Coburger kind of was doing the same thing. For Todd to have done that, and for him to be carrying out these big bags, people in this area speculate him a lot.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't think it's fair for her life or her family to not have those answers. And I think a lot more could have been done or could be done. And just in lieu of those evidence. That's weird. That's really weird.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Bryan Coburger was known to have used heroin. Is heroin a drug you can
Very
get in
much so.
Harrisburg?
Very much.
And is it more common in Harrisburg versus the Pocono Mountains?
I don't know about the Poconos. I'm sure there's a lot of in the Hershey area, which is right by Palmyra, it's their neighboring towns. There's a lot of wealthier families that live in the area. So there's a lot of drug use because kids can afford it. So in the Pocono area, it's the same way. There's a lot of wealthy people. You can't live in that area without being wealthy. There's a lot of gated communities. So I'm sure there is massive drug use in that area. I'm ignorant to it because I don't know anyone that lives in the area. I had family that lived up there years ago, older folks. I don't know about kids that live up there. I would assume it's very similar though.
True. Joe says so many other places closer to Coburger, Allentown, Scranton, Philly, NYC. Why drive to Harrisburg? Well, here's the thing. He was close to Moscow, and he still traveled, across state lines. However, if he started at the age of 18, 16, 17, whatever, he may have been doing things a lot further away. And as he got complacent and more confident in what he was doing, he may not have been traveling as far. And so that's the reason why I don't really discount it. And like I said before, if this was a drug-related incident, Kohberger was related to drugs, is it possible that maybe he was told to rough somebody up, scare somebody or steal some money? Something to that effect. Gets over there, sees this young lady, blonde hair. He just goes a little bit too crazy. The other thing that I can think of as far as why there's not a disturbance or anything is that maybe she was taken forcibly by perhaps a gun and didn't fight, and whatever occurred happened after the fact.
So in lieu to this gentleman's question, Harrisburg is, for some who might not know, Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania, and it's like Grand Central Station for the state. There's a massive highway that runs through it. It's 81, and a lot of people travel through Harrisburg to get to New York or to Maryland. So it is not uncommon for people to find themselves within Harrisburg. Like I said, it's a central location, so it would not surprise me. There's a nightlife. Cost of living is not terrible. Outside of it, it's a little more expensive, but Harrisburg's not too bad. And there, like I said, it's a little busier.
And I saw your comment, RVing, keep it rolling. I'm sorry for your loss. And if you want us to bring some attention to your daughter's case, let us know. We're more than happy to do so. To just get the word out there. And then that's exactly what our goal here tonight was to, maybe jog some memories. Maybe somebody knows something. Maybe somebody's not afraid to talk anymore. Those things change, right? And so to me, like I said before, I'm not completely sold on Kohberger doing this. If it was if I had to put like odds on it, I would say probably less than 10% chance. Now, who knows? Now let's look at this. So we put a poll out. We had 471 votes. 44% of you guys said that it was drug related. 7% think it's Cody. 15% think neighbor Todd, and 34% think it's Kohberger. And so it's not.
So I'm glad people are at least thinking where I was. Like, I had a hunch. Like I
Mhm.
said, reached out to you, wasn't sure if it would go anywhere, but knowing the similarities, you just don't know. And for anyone to assume it wasn't Coburger, we don't know what his life was like at 18, where he was traveling. We only know about the recent, right? And I think with his case coming up, I'm sure investigators are really looking into it and dissecting every point of contact, every location he's been within Pennsylvania. I know Pennsylvania State Police are very, very adamant on figuring out if he's related to any cold cases here in Pennsylvania. And just from living in the state, I know that they're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not being biased to it, but I do believe that they're looking further into it. I'm interested to know if more come up though.
Right. No, for sure. For sure. Let's see. We have a $9.99 super chat from Jane. Jane says, when women get involved in drugs, there's a high chance of being sex trafficked if you owe money. Yeah, that's true. That's another thing that possibly could be going on. Now, from my understanding, this was a very strong-willed woman who spoke her mind and things of that nature.
Wasn't scared.
Wasn't scared, and so I don't know if, like, I mean, if you get drugged, I'm sure you'll end up doing a lot of things you wouldn't expect to do.
But that's another great point, right? Like, for some who would say Bryan Kohberger had no relation to this case, right?
Mhm.
Assuming is the lowest form of thinking. We don't know. Just like sex trafficking. Who's to say? We just don't know. But to bring this up and for people to know who Kortne was and what happened,
Mhm.
I would love if someone would speak up and have information that could either, I'm not saying that they know exactly, or could just have an idea that others have not thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, how far is Bethlehem, Pennsylvania from this area?
I would say close to 2 hours.
Also 2 hours? Okay.
Yeah. I'd say the furthest point from Harrisburg is probably like Erie and Pittsburgh. Everything else is like Philly is about an hour and a half.
Mhm.
Everything else is about an hour and a half. And then Pittsburgh and Erie is probably close to 3 to 4 hours.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's a pretty sad situation. Hopefully there's a resolution in this case. Hopefully they find her, hopefully they find her alive and well. Best scenario is that she left, but if not, if something more nefarious happened, hopefully justice is served sooner than later.
And Daniel, I really appreciate you doing the research that you did. It kind of gives me more insight. I don't want to say closure, but it helps me understand a lot more. I was listening to you and I was thinking, how do more people not know what you've researched? I couldn't find anything like that. I've not heard anything of some of the details that you relayed. So I appreciate you doing your due diligence as well.
Thank you. Lacey asks if I have a cold. I actually have the big C19, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm on the up and up though. Yesterday was by far the worst I had. Last night I was couldn't breathe, nauseous, throwing up. I think I ended up contracting it probably Friday or Thursday. Started getting the symptoms probably Friday afternoon. From Friday to this morning, I had eaten a total of 3 pieces of toast and a lot of water.
With cinnamon and sugar.
No, it was just toast and a little bit of butter because I tried eating other things and it just didn't stay down. And I thought I had allergies or a stomach bug, and my wife wasn't feeling good either. And so she went to the doctor, and sure enough, she came back saying, "Hey, I got the big C."
It's always the wife. You got to leave it to the wife to figure it out, because I'm sorry, husbands are like, I'm fine. And then the wife goes and then she figures it out and you're like, well, maybe I have it.
Nah, I'm a big baby when I'm sick. My wife takes good care of me. Yeah, she
how's she feeling?
She's about a day behind me, so she's doing better today than yesterday also, but she doesn't sound as good as I do today. She'll probably be where I'm at tomorrow. She did it to herself. She thought I had allergies, and I was drinking I think it was just a soda. I was trying to drink a soda, because I thought my sugar was low or something. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I didn't think it was C19 because I had that once.
Right.
And
Totally different symptoms, right?
right, yeah, this was nothing like it was back in 2020 when I got it.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't smell anything, couldn't taste anything then.
But this time you could, right?
Yeah, but things were a little tasted funny. Like I had this sweet taste in my mouth. Like I drank my water and there was like a sweet taste to it, and everything had like a sweet taste. And even when not to sound gross, y'all, but when I vomited, there was like a sweet taste to it too. And it was just I was starting to freak out. I was like, man, maybe my insulin is up or something. And sure enough,
I'm sugar problems too, and that's hard. I mean, half the time I'm sick, it's because my sugar is really low. And just within the last, I'd say maybe 8 months, I got hit with COVID again. And the first time was different. Couldn't smell anything, could not taste anything. This time it was almost like I had strep and the flu at the same time. I mean, my throat was swollen. I was throwing up. I was so sick. But I think it just depends on different strains.
Yeah, the doctor told my wife this one's not one of the stronger ones.
Right.
I mean, there was I did so I cover the Steelers as well. Yesterday we were on In Hindsight, and I was talking about we have a podcast that goes between my channel on YouTube, which is called State of the Steelers, and my buddy Nathan Hines, his is called In Hindsight. And so we go back and forth. And yesterday I was doing a show with him, and there was a few times where I thought I was going to have to get off because I thought I was going to throw up in the show. Yeah, people could see I was looking down quite often, and then I was getting real dizzy. It's not fun. This one, the first time, lost of smell, lost of taste, and the only thing that I had was like I had this I felt like pressure in my forehead. Yeah, and my heart rate was elevated. This time it was nothing the same. Nothing the same.
Totally different. Yeah,
100%.
that was for me too. I was like, this can't be COVID. There's no way. I go to the doctor. She's like, you definitely have COVID. I'm like, there's absolutely no way. It's totally different.
Yeah, it is.
I have long COVID now. What's long?
I'm not sure what that is, but if it's something that lasts more than a few days, if I had this since Thursday, I'm going on a week tomorrow. But
well, I hope you're better.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody in the live chat. I appreciate everybody that stuck through and caught us. And thank you, Holly, for joining on and bringing attention to this case. Hopefully there's some answers sooner than later. Do you have any final words? I usually ask that to Big Blue. But
no, you guys have been amazing. Again, thank you so much for responding to my email. This really is heartfelt for just the state of Pennsylvania. Everybody is actively, I mean, there is not a year that goes by that people aren't thinking of Kortne or not posting about her. And it makes me sad because people do go missing every day all over the world. But Kortne really was a beautiful person. For anyone that knew her, knows what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people who are very close to her, much closer than I could have even imagined. So I appreciate you bringing light to her disappearance. It really means a lot to me. And I'm sure it means a lot to her family too.
Of course. And if anything else pops up in this case or any other information, we'll be covering it as well. Again, thank you to everybody. Y'all have a great night. Wait, one last question. I saw this. Was she a vegan?
I don't know that. That's a good question. I'll look into it and I'll text you tonight.
All right, cool. That'll work. With that being said, y'all, this is the Drunk Turkey Show. We'll see you guys Friday. Tomorrow night, though, I'm on the lab with Josh Diaz at I think it's like at 8:00 Central Time. So we're gonna be talking Coburger. We're gonna be talking about is it possible that he walks? And he's gonna be asking me a bunch of questions. I know that's the title of the show is Coburger can he walk on this case? And so we're gonna be going through those details. Go check it out on the lab with Josh Diaz. He covers the Summer Wells case. He was just on our show not too long ago talking about the Summer Wells case. So let him know that we sent you. And then we'll be back on Friday night with Truth and Transparency on the show. We're going to be talking Bryan Kohberger there too. We're going to be talking about DoorDash and all those other interesting things that have come up since in the last couple of weeks, IDs, things
I'm
like
interested.
that.
I'm interested to know whose IDs they found. So,
well, I mean, if it's a if it's a trophy, and there were multiple IDs in a glove inside of a box, then there really could be some truth to the fact that he may or may not be he may be an SK. So it'll be interesting. So with that being said, guys, you guys going to be on the lab tomorrow. I'll see y'all then. If not, I'll see you Friday night, 7:30. Hyman and Big Blue will be on as well. That being said, we're the Drunk Turkey Show. Peace out, y'all.